Welcome to Grit and Grace. This is the Alice in Wonderland series. If you've been following along, you will know Alice. Alice is every woman who has ever sat at her kitchen table after everyone else has gone to bed, laptop open, eyes propped open with toothpicks, cup of tea gone cold, wondering if she is brave or completely mad. She is the woman with a business idea, a growing business, a stretched business, or a business that looks successful from the outside but still feels heavy behind closed doors. She is capable, tired, clever, questioning herself, and she is probably overdue to send at least 3 invoices. Alice is not one person. Alice is many women. She is the hairdresser who knows every client's life story but still struggles to charge properly for her time. She is the bookkeeper, consultant, coach, florist, therapist, retailer, tradies wife, designer, photographer, accountant, cleaner, educator, maker, manager, and dreamer. She is the woman who is brilliant at what she does, but still sometimes feels like she is asking for too much when she sends a quote. So today's episode is called The Day Alice Stopped Apologising. And if you've ever started a sentence with, "Sorry, I'm just checking in," "Sorry, my price is," "Sorry, I know you're busy," "Sorry, I was wondering if," then this episode is for you. Because today, Alice is going to learn something that might change everything. She is going to learn that apologising for existing in business is very expensive, not just financially, emotionally, energetically, professionally, and personally. It was 9:47 a.m., actually p.m., when Alice opened the email. She should have been asleep. She had promised herself she would stop working at night. Again. That promise had lasted approximately 8:16 p.m. when she remembered a client proposal she had not finished, 2 invoices she had not sent, and a message from someone who wanted to pick her brain. Alice hated that phrase. Not because she did not want to help people. Alice loved helping people. That was actually part of the problem. She loved helping so much that sometimes she accidentally turned her business into a free information kiosk. The email was from a potential client. They had received Alice's proposal, they liked her work, they could see the value, but the price was a little higher than they expected. Alice stared at the screen. There it was, the sentence that could undo an entire day of confidence. A little higher than expected. Her first instinct was immediate. Drop the price, explain herself, add more inclusions, offer a payment plan before they had even asked. Send a long email proving that she was worth it, while quietly making herself smaller with every paragraph. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Hi Sarah, sorry about that." Alice stopped. Sorry? Sorry for what? Sorry for pricing the work properly? Sorry for having experience? Sorry for needing to pay wages, software, insurance, tax, rent, superannuation, and the electricity bill? Sorry for not building a business entirely out of goodwill and nervous system dysregulation? She leaned back in her chair. For the first time, Alice noticed something. Her body was reacting as if she had done something wrong. But all she had done was send a price. A fair price for valuable work. And yet here she was at nearly 10 o'clock at night, feeling like she had been caught taking the last biscuit at a meeting. That was the moment Alice realised she was not just running a business. She was carrying a pattern of over-explaining, over-delivering, undercharging, softening, shrinking, smoothing every edge so nobody felt uncomfortable, except her. She was very uncomfortable all the time. The next morning, Alice met her friend Mia for coffee. Mia was the kind of friend who loved you deeply but would also look you dead in the eye and tell you when you were being ridiculous. Every woman in business needs at least one Mia. Alice told her about the email. "I nearly discounted it," Alice admitted. Mia stirred her coffee. "Why?" Alice sighed. "I didn't want to lose the client." "Uh-huh. And if you discount it?" Alice paused. "Well, then I might resent the work." "Correct. And I'll have to fit it around everything else." "Yes. And I'll probably overservice them to prove they made the right decision." Almost certainly. And then I'll be exhausted. There she is, said Mia. The self-awareness has entered the chat. Alice laughed, but it caught her in the throat a little, because it was funny, but it was also not funny. How many times had she done this? How many times had she made herself easy to choose, but hard to sustain? Easy to access, easy to negotiate, easy to interrupt, easy to underpay, easy to assume, easy to rely on, easy to drain. In business, being easy can sound like a compliment. Oh, she's so accommodating. She always says yes. She will squeeze you in. She doesn't mind. But sometimes easy is just another word for available at the expense of yourself. And Alice was starting to understand that every time she said yes when she meant no, there was a cost. Every time she reduced her price from fear, there was a cost. Every time she apologized for a boundary, there was a cost. Every time she made herself smaller to make someone else more comfortable, there was a cost. And eventually the invoice arrived. It looked like exhaustion, resentment, lost profit, no time for strategy, too busy to grow. It looked like a business that depended on Alice being endlessly generous, flexible, and endlessly available, which sounds noble, but it's really unsustainable. Mia looked at Alice and said, "Can I give you 5 words?" And as we all do, Alice braced herself. Mia was very fond of 5-word truths, and some of them included things like, "You are not their mother," "Send the invoice before dinner," "Stop mentoring people for free." This time Mia chose, "You are allowed to choose." Alice waited for more. Mia did not give her more, because sometimes the sentence that changes you does not need to be complicated. You are allowed to choose. You are allowed to choose your price. You are allowed to choose your clients. You are allowed to choose your standards. You are allowed to choose how quickly you respond. You are allowed to choose what is included. You are allowed to choose what is extra. You are allowed to choose not to chase people who drain you. You are allowed to choose a business model that does not require you to betray yourself to be liked. Alice sat with that because somewhere along the way she had confused service with self-abandonment. She thought being good business meant being endlessly available or saying yes, or being professional meant never disappointing anyone. But Mia reminded her, you can care deeply about people and still have boundaries. You can serve clients beautifully and still charge properly. You can be generous without being careless with yourself. You can be warm and still be firm. And that line landed, warm and firm. Alice liked that. It felt possible, not harsh, not arrogant, not cold, just steady, warm and firm, like a good cup of tea and a locked front door. That afternoon, Alice sat down to reply to the email, and this time she did not start with sorry. She wrote, "Hi Sarah, thank you for your email. I completely understand that every business has a budget to work within. The proposal reflects the scope of work, the level of support included, and the outcomes we are working towards. I would be happy to discuss adjusting the scope if you would like to work within a different budget." Then she stopped. No essay, no emotional discount, no desperate paragraph proving a value, no complimentary extras, no sorry, just clarity, respect, options, a boundary. Alice's nervous system hated it. Her future self applauded. She pressed send. Then she immediately wanted to run around the block, and that's the part people do not always tell you about growth. Sometimes the right decision does not feel calm. Sometimes the right decision feels temporary. And yes, this is a working office, so sometimes the phone rings when you don't really want it to. Now, where was I? Sometimes the right decision feels terrifying because your old pattern is losing control. If you're used to people pleasing, a boundary can feel like a threat. If you are used to undercharging, proper pricing can feel greedy. If you are used to over-explaining, clarity can feel rude. If you're used to being chosen by everyone, choosing back can feel dangerous. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes discomfort is evidence that you are doing something new. Alice did not lose the client, by the way. Sarah replied the next day. Thanks, Alice. That makes great sense. Let's proceed. And that was it. No drama, no rejection, no angry response, no business catastrophe. Alice had spent 14 hours emotionally preparing for a disaster, and it never arrived. Which frankly was rude of her nervous system, but it's very common. And even if Sarah had said no, Alice would have survived. And that was the biggest lesson. The goal of business is not to be chosen by everyone. The goal is to build something strong enough that you can choose to. Let's bring this back to you. Alice's email might not be your email, but I wonder where you are apologising. Are you apologising in your pricing? You're charging less than the value you provide because you are worried people will think you're too expensive. Are you apologising in your calendar by letting everyone else's urgency become your emergency? Are you apologising in your messaging, hiding your expertise because you don't want to sound like you're bragging? Are you apologising in your leadership and avoiding hard conversations because you want to be liked? Are you apologising in your goals, making your dreams sound smaller so other people feel more comfortable? Are you apologising in your success, deflecting praise with, oh, I was lucky, instead of, thanks, I worked hard for that? The truth is you do not need to become louder to become more powerful. You do not need to become harder to become more respected. You do not need to become someone else. But you may need to stop making yourself smaller. You may need to stop wrapping every boundary in bubble wrap. You may need to stop asking permission to take up space in a business you built. Because there comes a point where the next level of your business does not require more information. It requires more identity. You have to start acting like the woman who already believes she belongs, not someday, not when the website is better, not when the numbers are perfect, not when you finally feel ready, now. A week later, Alice went to a networking breakfast and she nearly didn't go. She had a lot on, like we all do. Also, networking was something that made Alice feel like she was speed dating with business cards, but she went anyway. At the breakfast, each person had to introduce themselves, and normally Alice would say something like, oh, I just help small businesses with a bit of admin and systems. Just a bit? Small words, safe words, words that would not make anyone think that she thought too highly of herself. But this time Alice did something different. She stood up. I help small business owners build better systems so they can save time, improve profit, and stop carrying everything in their head. And the room nodded. Someone wrote it down. Someone asked for her card. Someone said, that's exactly what I need. Alice sat back down. Nothing exploded. Nobody rolled their eyes. Nobody stood up and shouted, who does she think she is? And that was another revelation. Sometimes we are waiting for criticism that is not coming. Sometimes the world is not asking us to shrink. We're just doing it because it's comfortable, because it's a habit. Alice realized that confidence was not necessarily a feeling that she had to wait for. It was a behavior she could practice. Say the sentence clearly, send the quote, name the value, hold the boundary, receive the compliment, make the decision, take the step. Confidence, Alice discovered, was built afterwards, not before. That night, Alice stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way, more in a tired woman brushing her teeth while remembering she forgot to move the washing kind of way. But she looked at herself differently. She thought about all the versions of herself who had brought her to this point. The Alice who started the business, the one who made the mistakes, the one who learnt by doing, the Alice who smiled in public and cried in private, the Alice who kept trying, the Alice who wanted more but felt guilty admitting it. And the first time in a long time, she did not criticise that woman. She thanked her. Because maybe she had not done everything perfectly. She'd undercharged, she'd overgiven, said yes too many times, she'd apologised too quickly. but she'd also built something. She had served people. She had grown. She had survived. She had become. And now she was allowed to become again, not because the old version was wrong, but because the next version was ready. And that is what growth often is. Not rejecting who you are, but honoring who you were, while no longer letting her run the whole business. The survival version of you may have got you started. The people-pleasing version of you may have kept you safe. And the over-delivering version of you may have helped you build trust. But at some point, you have to lovingly say, thank you, you got me here, but I will take it from here. A month later, Alice receives another message. Someone wanted urgent help. The old Alice would have squeezed it in. The old Alice would have worked late. The old Alice would have rearranged herself around someone else's poor planning. Instead, she paused. She replied, I can assist, but I'm not able to complete this by tomorrow. My next available appointment is Thursday. If you would like to proceed, I can send through the booking details. She waited, and guess what they did? They booked for next Thursday. Again, no explosion, no disaster, no punishment for having boundaries. Alice smiled not because she had suddenly become fearless, but because she now had proof. Proof that she could be clear and still be kind. Professional and still human. Successful and still herself. And that's the point. We're not trying to turn Alice into someone cold or arrogant. We are helping Alice come home to herself. Because the strongest businesses are not built by women who abandon themselves. They are built by women who learn to trust themselves. So if today's episode has landed somewhere tender, I want to leave you with this. You are allowed to stop apologizing for wanting a business that supports you too. You are allowed to charge properly. You are allowed to be profitable. You are allowed to have standards. You are allowed to outgrow survival mode. You are allowed to build a business that does not require you to be exhausted to prove you care. You are allowed to choose. And maybe today is the day you stop saying, sorry, I am just. Maybe today is the day you say, this is what I do. This is how I help. This is what it costs. This is what I need. This is where I'm going. Because it was not nothing. The work you have done, the courage it took, the things you carried, the moments you kept going, it was not nothing. It was you. And you are allowed to build from here with more clarity, more courage, more boundaries, more belief, and far fewer apologies. And that is where Alice is heading. And maybe so are you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Alice series. If this episode resonated with you, take one action today. Send the email without the unnecessary apology. Review the quote, hold the boundaries, say the real sentence, let yourself be seen, because the next version of your business may not need you to do more. She may simply need you to stop making yourself smaller. Until next time, keep building with grit, grace, and just a little courage.
In the quiet, before the daylight breaks, I'm drawing lines for my own sake. I've carried more than I let on show, still found a way to learn and grow. With steady hands I set the pace, a fierce heart held in gentle space. I won't trade my peace for proof. I won't build a life without a roof. I'll rise, I'll rest, I'll recalibrate. Strong enough to do, wise enough to wait. It's grit and grace, side by side. Fire in my chest, calm in my mind. I'll build what lasts, I'll choose my lane. Turn pressure into purpose, paint it again. With grit and grace, I'm free to be all I am, becoming steadily. I won't shrink back to make it easy. I won't stay small to keep things tidy. I'll speak the truth, I'll name my worth. Put roots down deep and do the work. And when it's heavy, I won't break. through. When doubt is loud, I'll still begin. Again and again, I'll choose to win. Not by force, not by fear, by showing up year after year. It's grit and grace, side by side, fire in my chest, calm in my mind. I'll build what lasts, I'll choose my lane. Turn pressure into purpose, paint it again. With grit and grace, I'm free to be all I am, becoming steadily. Grit and grace, I rise, I breathe, I make my place. Grit and grace, side by side I run.